A mysterious disease named idiopathic adolescent acute neurodegeneration, or IAAN, causes countless deaths among children while the survivors develop strange abilities. After the disease spreads across the United States, CDC's President Gray is questioned about the preventative measures when he reveals that his son Clancy Gray suffered from it but is stable now, which proves that there is still hope for others as well. As the situation gets worse, a young girl named Ruby also falls prey to the disease but survives. After waking up the next morning, she finds out that her mother cannot recognize her, as she locked her in her room before calling CDC representatives who take her away. It's revealed that CDC has been taking all survivor kids to specialized camps to keep them under their supervision. Upon arriving at the facility, a kid gets nervous due to the chaos and protests, but is attacked by a female security member before Ruby, with her newly acquired abilities, controls her mind, making her shoot herself, whereas the kids are forced to get inside. After a while, the doctor examines Ruby and explains that they have divided the survivors into different groups, whereas green is a highly intelligent, blues are telekinetic ability, and gold can manipulate electricity. He further reveals that oranges and reds are considered the most dangerous ones and are killed instantly. He also finds out that Ruby is also an orange and tries to sedate her, but she controls his mind, forcing him to rank her in the green category. 6 years later, Ruby is still in the camp and has managed to hide her identity, but an officer named Captain McManus gets suspicious of her and orders the staff to run a frequency test which knocks her unconscious. After waking up in the infirmary, Ruby finds Dr. Kate by her side and introduces herself as a former social worker and assures her that she'll take care of her. After Kate leaves, Ruby finds a note from her revealing that the authorities have found her identity and are planning to kill her, but she can get her out. Later that night, Ruby follows the instructions from Kate, and they manage to break out of the facility after Ruby controls McMahon's mind to let them cross the gate. They continue driving until the next morning, while Ruby looks at everything with excitement as she has not been outside for the last 6 years. While driving through the empty roads of Virginia, Kate tells her that her organization, known as the Children's League, is working to get the kids out of the camps because they know that the government's claim of these facilities being the reform centers for survival kids are completely false. To assure her safety, Kate also gives Ruby a tracking device so she can get back to her in case they are separated. After a while, they stop at a gas station to pick up Kate's friend Rob, who informs them that they have got another lead on a red kid. While getting the new clothes from him as he holds Ruby's hand to save her from falling to the ground, she has a vision and gets suspicious of their intentions. Following his suggestions to get rid of the uniform, she goes inside to change, where she meets a mute girl, Sue, a gold kid who can manipulate electricity. Although Sue gets scared of her, she accepts Ruby's request of letting her into the van and flees with her and her friends, Liam, a blue, and Chubbs, the green one. Despite Chubbs' disagreement, Liam allows her to stay and introduces her to the group, but they encounter a tracer, Lady Jane, who is assigned to the job to get them back to the camp. Jane starts shooting at the car, but Kate and Rob, who have been following the van, help them, before Liam asks Ruby to drive while he uses his telekinetic powers to dodge both parties, as he does not trust any of them. After getting to a comparatively safe place, Ruby shares her intentions of going back to her house, but Liam stops her by warning her it's not safe out there and that she should stay with the group. He also discloses that they're going to the East River to find a secret place where kids like them live freely, as the camp is controlled by an orange known as the Slip Kid. After sharing their lunch as they get back into the van, Ruby asks about the League as she thinks those people might be genuinely concerned for her, and she doubts her decision of abandoning them, but Liam disagrees with her. He reveals that he was part of the League, but they started training them as soldiers, so he left and never went back because he thinks that they'll use kids' unusual abilities for their own benefit. Meanwhile, Captain McManus punishes the doctor for failing to recognize Ruby and orders his assistant to send all of the tracers after her. As the group makes a stop for the night, Ruby finds a keychain her father gave her on her birthday and thinks about her family. Liam shows up and apologizes to her for his rude behavior earlier, but Chubbs teases him for knowing he has soft feelings for Ruby, and the group eventually accepts her. The same night, Sue accidentally touches her hand, enabling Ruby to get into her head and learn how Liam helped her and the other kids escape from the camp. Sue gets afraid of the nightmare, but Liam calms her down and once again assures her he will protect her at any costs. The next morning, Ruby and Liam get the van ready when they spot the tracers looking for them, but Ruby makes them leave without taking any action against them. Liam gets surprised to see this unexpected sight, but Ruby denies knowing anything about why they left. Continuing the journey again, they arrive at the supermarket to shop for more supplies, As they enjoy their time in the empty store, they are attacked by a group of some other kids who initially think of them as tracers, but agree to help after Liam reveals the truth. After the kids allow them to spend the night with them, Ruby uses her powers to get information about the East River. The kid confirms that the camp exists, but when asked about the exact location, only tells them the letters EDO. Later, as Ruby and Chubbs try to crack the code, he shares that he's been practicing writing secret messages in an attempt to contact his parents, but now thinks it's useless as they must believe he's dead because of the disease. Soon, Chubbs finds out that the code refers to a special frequency that only the kids can hear. He's proved to be right because when they tune into it, they're overwhelmed to hear the Slip Kid inviting other survivors to the safe haven he created for them. The next morning, they take Ruby to her hometown Salem at her request, as she intends to go back to her home instead of accompanying them to East River. After saying goodbye to them, she goes to her house, but changes her mind after remembering that she erased herself from their lives and they won't recognize her. As she cries for her loss, Liam shows up again and tries to comfort her when Ruby tells him about her dad's birthday present. Liam says that they're each other's family now and must stick together. After assuring her of his support, he tries to kiss her, but Ruby hesitates, thinking she might hurt him if she touches him. Although unable to understand her behavior, Liam offers her to join them as Chubbs and Sue are already waiting for her. As soon as they get back to the van, Jane once again attacks them. After capturing Liam, Chubbs, and Sue, she tries to take Ruby as well. Finding no other way, Ruby decides to use her powers in front of the others and hypnotizes her, making her drop her gun and walk into the forest without looking back. The group is shocked to find out her true identity and power, but before they can say anything, Ruby passes out of exhaustion. When she wakes up, she thinks the group won't stay with her anymore, so she decides to continue on her own. After listening to her concerns, Chubbs reveals he knew about her identity since they first met her, but they don't have any problem with that, because they know each one of them has unique powers. Ruby tells them she's afraid of her capabilities because sometimes it gets out of control and only needs touching someone's skin to get into their head. Liam realizes the reason behind her hesitation earlier, but still decides to help her as much as he can. After abandoning the van so no one can track them, they continue on foot and soon find a secret sign, learning that they're going in the right direction. Soon they arrive outside Slip Kid's territory, where they were stopped by guards, but one of them recognizes Liam as he was his campmate, who broke them free and takes them inside. While walking through the area, they figure out that the kids are all really happy. The boy tells them it's because that there's no segregation on the base of color, and they respect each other's powers. They arrive in Slip Kid's cabin and are surprised to know it's Clancy Gray, who already knows about their specific colors, but he welcomes them and offers them to stay as long as they want. After they settle in, they attend a party where the kids enjoy their time with each other. Ruby and Liam spend the night dancing together while Clancy watches over them and finds out that they have feelings for each other. The following day, Ruby visits Clancy's office asking him about assigning her to a duty in the camp, but he tells her she has to work with him. Clancy reveals he was one of the first survivors, so the doctors treated him like a lab rat to find a cure. Although his father knew about it but never protested and tried anything for his son, which made him upset, and he decided not to go back to him. Clancy tells her that the CDC won't stop until they find a cure because they're afraid of their powers, and that's why they've detained the kids in their camps. He also offers to teach Ruby how to control her powers and effectively use them without hurting anyone. Everyone else is given their respective duties, with Liam being a security member and Chubbs working with a gardener. But Sue gets the advantage due to her age and is sent to school. Clancy keeps teaching her and tells Ruby that they are brought together for a reason, as they are the only orange kids here, and he thinks that they must use their gifts to make the world a better place for kids like them. Knowing he's just like her, Ruby feels connected to him, thinking he's the only one who can understand her. On his suggestion, she also agrees to share her past with him. As she opens up to him, Liam overhears them and gets upset by their closeness, which leads to a heated argument between them. Ruby confesses to hiding the truth for his own protection, but he does not believe her, and she storms out in frustration when she says he can't understand what it's like to be an orange. She follows him through the woods, but stops after spotting Chubbs sitting by a lake. When she talks to him, Chubbs reveals he's not happy here and wishes that they were still in the van. He thinks the place is no different than the camps, as they must follow their orders and cannot leave of their own will. But he wants to be free and go back to his family. Meanwhile, Clancy's true intentions are revealed as he writes a message to McManus, telling him that they've got more kids, including Ruby and Orange, and orders him it's time to execute the plan. Ruby shows up in his office and requests him to let Chubbs use his computer so he can contact his family. Although reluctant, Clancy agrees to accept the request if she teaches him how she erased herself from her parents' minds, because he wants to learn the same technique. As he insists, Ruby allows him to walk through her memories, but he tries to kiss her, which makes her upset, and she walks out after having a fight with him. As she comes back while crying and unintentionally shares everything with Liam, he intends to shoot Clancy, but she stops him and they decide to get out of this place. At night, they secretly gather Sue and Chubbs and try to sneak out, but are stopped by McManus and his assistant, finally realizing that Clancy is on their team and is trying to use his powers to control the government for his own purpose. On his orders, the security members start beating Liam, while he reveals he is planning to erase Ruby's memories so she can join him in his mission. Although shocked, Ruby uses her powers, forcing McManus to shoot himself, while Sue electrocutes other members to save Liam. Soon, the helicopter surrounding the area drops a group of Reds, who light up everything on fire. Using his telekinetic powers, Liam redirects the fire to them and kills the entire group. After requesting Liam to leave with Sue and Chubbs and to help the other kids, Ruby comes face to face with Clancy. As he once again tries to convince her to join him, she makes the helicopter crash on him but gets caught up in the fire. Chubbs shows up from out of nowhere to save her, but is severely burnt in the struggle. Ruby takes him by the lake where he asks her to save herself, but she refuses to leave him behind. Finding no other way, Ruby uses the tracking device to let Kate know about their location, so she can help her rescue Chubbs. Liam joins them the following morning and tries to carry Chubbs, but she tells him she's already informed Kate. Knowing that the League does not trust him, she requests him to leave, but Liam decides to stay with them. Soon, Kate and Rob arrive and take the trio to their hideout. Ruby wakes up in their secret place where Kate tells her Chubbs has been taken to a hospital and is being treated. As Ruby expresses her concerns about their intentions, Kate tells her that they're not training the kids to be soldiers, but are just on the mission to expose these camps. Kate and Rob offer her to join the League so they can save other children from President Gray and her son Clancy. Ruby reluctantly agrees to accept Kate's offer, but only if they let Liam go. Knowing he won't leave her behind, Ruby talks to him in his room where he confesses his feelings for her, but she unwillingly erases herself from his memories to ensure his safety. When he regains consciousness, she gives him his bag and says goodbye before watching him leave the house. In the end, Sue is adopted by a supportive family. Chubbs recovers in the hospital, while Clancy, who has survived the injuries, resumes his plan and gets the US forces by his side. Ruby eventually accepts her true self and joins the League with thousands of other survivor kids who join the fight against Clancy's evil intentions. If you enjoyed that recap, I got a good feeling that you'll like this one too. Click on the video on your screen for more.